I remember the exact moment my life changed. I was sitting at my desk, buried in paperwork, trying to meet another impossible deadline. My phone rang. At first, I almost ignored it. Then I saw my mother's name. The moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. Her voice was shaking. My younger sister had disappeared. No one had heard from her since yesterday afternoon. She had gone alone to our family's old dacha, a small wooden house hidden deep in the forest outside St. Petersburg. She never came home. Her friends had been calling her for hours. Her phone went straight to voicemail. No one knew where she was. Without thinking twice, I told my boss I was leaving. Work suddenly felt meaningless. Family came first, always. By early evening, I was already driving north. The farther I left the city behind, the emptier the roads became. Concrete apartment blocks slowly gave way to endless pine forests, abandoned villages, and old Soviet-era dacha communities that looked forgotten by time. The sky turned gray. Rain clouds gathered overhead. By the time I reached the property, night was beginning to fall. The place looked exactly as I remembered. A weathered wooden fence. An old swing my father had built years ago. A narrow dirt path leading to the porch. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I called her name. Nothing. Only the wind answered. I searched around the yard first. Near the front gate, something caught my eye. Her phone. It was lying face down in the dirt. The screen was cracked. I picked it up. Dozens of missed calls. Unread messages. The battery was almost dead. People had been trying to reach her for hours. If she dropped it by accident, why hadn't she come back for it? A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I immediately called the police. They told me officers were already on their way. Stay where you are, they said. Easy for them to say. I wasn't about to stand outside doing nothing. So I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air smelled stale, like the house had been closed up for weeks. Everything was strangely quiet. The kitchen chairs were knocked over. A jacket lay on the floor near the hallway. Nothing appeared to be stolen, but nothing felt right either. I slowly checked every room downstairs. No sign of my sister. Then I climbed the narrow wooden stairs. Each step groaned beneath my weight. Her bedroom looked like someone had searched through it in a panic. Blankets were scattered across the floor. The mattress had been pulled halfway off the bed. A drawer hung open, but there were no signs of blood. No obvious struggle, just chaos. I searched the entire house twice. She wasn't there. Neither was anyone else. An hour later, 2 police officers finally arrived. They asked the usual questions. When had anyone last spoken to her? Did she have enemies? Was she seeing someone? Had she ever disappeared before? I answered everything I could. They looked through the house, took notes, walked around the property with flashlights. Then one of them sighed. We'll continue searching first thing in the morning. That was it. No search dogs, no helicopters, just paperwork. By then, it was already dark. Driving back to the city would take hours. The roads through these forests were dangerous at night. Against my better judgment, I decided to stay. It's a decision I still regret. I locked the front door, slid the heavy metal bolt into place, checked every window. Then I carried a flashlight upstairs. The bedroom suddenly felt much smaller than it had during the day. Outside, the forest had disappeared into complete darkness, no street lights, no nearby neighbors, only endless trees. I lay down fully dressed. Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound the old house made seemed louder than it should have been. The wind, the roof settling, branches scraping against the walls. I kept telling myself, morning wasn't that far away. I just had to make it through one night. I had no idea. Something outside already knew I was there. I don't know how long I had been lying there. Maybe 20 minutes? Maybe an hour. I never actually fell asleep. I was caught somewhere between exhaustion and that strange feeling that someone was watching me. Then I heard it. Footsteps outside. Someone was walking around the dacha, not running, not sneaking, just walking slowly, deliberately. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound circled the house once. Then everything went silent. My pulse was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The first thought that crossed my mind wasn't a bear. It wasn't a thief. It was the same thought every person has after hearing about a missing family member. What if whoever took my sister came back? I grabbed my flashlight but didn't turn it on. If someone was outside, I didn't want them knowing exactly where I was. Very slowly, I stepped toward the window. The curtains were only slightly open. I carefully peeked through the gap. Nothing. Only the yard, the old fence, dark pine trees swaying in the wind. Then something moved. A silhouette disappeared around the corner of the house. Too fast for me to make out any details. Whoever it was, they were now standing near the front door. I held my breath. A few seconds passed. Then I heard it. Metal scraping against metal. Someone was trying to unlock the front door. The key turned, stopped, turned again. The lock clicked, but the door didn't open. I'd locked the deadbolt from inside. Whoever was out there didn't seem to understand why the door wouldn't open. Again, the key turned. Again, then harder. The handle shook violently. Once, twice, again. Every failed attempt became more desperate. Whoever stood outside clearly believed they belonged inside. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone. I dialed emergency services. They're here, I whispered. Someone's trying to get into the house. The dispatcher told me officers were already on their way. I looked at the call timer. It had been less than 30 seconds. It felt like 10 minutes. The rattling continued. Then it stopped. Complete silence. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't even blink. That's when I realized something. If whoever was outside knew I was inside, the windows would be much easier than the door. There were no bars, just old glass. One swing with something heavy, and they'd be standing in the room with me. So I stayed perfectly still, praying they hadn't heard me. Another minute passed. Then I heard someone laugh. A woman's laugh. My entire body froze. I knew that laugh. I'd heard it thousands of times growing up. It was my sister, Tanya. My heart leaped for one impossible second. I thought she'd simply come back. Maybe she'd lost her phone. Maybe she'd gotten lost in the forest. Maybe this whole nightmare had been a misunderstanding. Then her voice came through the front door, soft, casual, almost cheerful. Yeah, around 8 tonight. I'll call Kolya. I stopped breathing. Koya, that was me. Except it wasn't 8 o'clock anymore. It was nearly midnight, and her phone was still lying in my hand. I stared at the front door. Every instinct told me to answer her. Every memory I had screamed that it was my sister's voice. But something was wrong. She wasn't talking to me. She was having a conversation with someone who wasn't there. Yeah, I'll be back soon. A pause, then another sentence. I just need to grab something. The voice sounded perfect. Every word, every pause, every little habit she had when she spoke. Except there was no second voice. No one answered her. It was like someone was repeating pieces of conversations it had heard before, completely out of context. My stomach dropped. Not loud, not aggressive, patient, almost polite. Then my sister laughed again. You can open the door. Another pause. It's freezing out here. I closed my eyes. Whoever or whatever was outside knew exactly who I wanted to hear. It was trying to make me unlock the door. Then everything went quiet. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing. I stayed frozen beside the bedroom wall for what felt like forever. Then a faint scrape coming from the upstairs window. Very slowly, I turned my head. Something was standing outside. Second floor. There was no balcony, no ladder, nothing anyone could climb. Yet a figure was pressed against the outside of the window. Its body was unnaturally thin. Its skin looked pale gray beneath the moonlight. Long fingers rested against the glass. Its head leaned slightly to one side, as if it were studying me. It didn't blink, it didn't move. It simply watched. Then its mouth opened, and in my sister's exact voice, it whispered, "Koya." I couldn't move. Every muscle in my body locked. The creature reacted immediately. Its head snapped toward the forest. For the first time, I saw it smile. Not a human smile. Its mouth stretched far wider than it should have. Too many teeth, too long, too thin. Then it simply let go of the wall. It didn't fall. It disappeared into the darkness beside the house so smoothly it almost looked like it had melted into the shadows. Seconds later, blue lights flashed through the trees. The police had arrived. I practically threw the front door open. The officers rushed inside with their flashlights raised. They searched every room, the attic, the basement, outside, nothing. One of the officers noticed how badly I was shaking. "What did you see?" I tried to explain. I knew how insane it sounded. A person. No, it looked human, but it was standing outside my second floor window. The older officer didn't laugh. He just exchanged a quick glance with his partner. Neither of them said a word. Instead, he quietly asked, "Did it speak?" I looked at him. "How did you know that?" Before he could answer, his radio crackled. The dispatcher spoke only one sentence. "A female body has been located approximately 3 kilometers east of your position." Silence. The older officer slowly lowered his head. Then he looked at me. "I'm sorry. My sister had been dead for hours." Which meant whatever had been calling my name outside the house was never her. The next morning, I identified my sister's body. I won't describe what she looked like. Some memories are better left buried. The police ruled it an animal attack. That explanation fell apart almost immediately. There were no tracks, no blood trail, no signs that any predator had dragged her through the forest. Just her body, exactly where someone wanted it to be found. I told the investigators everything. The voice, the knocking, the thing outside my window. The older officer listened without interrupting. When I finished, he stayed silent for a long time. Finally, he looked at me and quietly said, "You weren't the first." My heart sank. He explained that over the last few years, several people had disappeared in the forest around the old dacha settlements. Almost every witness who survived described the same thing. Someone calling their name, a familiar voice in the dark. Sometimes a child, sometimes a husband, sometimes a parent who had died years earlier. No one could explain it. Officially, none of those reports existed. Later that afternoon, 2 officers asked if I could drive with them back to the property. They wanted to collect a few remaining personal belongings before sealing the area. I didn't want to go, but leaving my sister's things behind somehow felt worse. The 3 of us headed back into the forest. The drive was painfully quiet. No one spoke. The only sound was the tires rolling over the cracked road. Then the radio switched on by itself. Static filled the car. The younger officer reached to turn it off. Before he could, a woman's voice came through. Soft, calm, perfectly clear. "Koya!" My blood froze. It was my sister again. The older officer grabbed the radio and shut it off instantly. No one said a word. About 30 seconds later, it turned back on by itself. This time, the voice wasn't calling me. It was calling the older officer by name. He slammed the brakes. The patrol car came to a stop in the middle of the empty forest road. None of us wanted to look outside, but eventually, we did. The road ahead was empty. No cars, no people, nothing but endless forest stretching in every direction. The older officer slowly stepped out of the patrol car. His hand rested on the pistol at his side. "Stay inside," he ordered. Neither of us argued. He scanned the tree line with his flashlight. Nothing. Just tall pines swaying in the wind. For a moment, it almost felt ridiculous. Maybe we had imagined the voice. Maybe grief was playing tricks on our minds. Then it wasn't loud, it wasn't close, but it was unmistakable. My sister. The officer froze. The younger cop looked at him. "You heard that too?" Before anyone could answer, the radio crackled again. This time, it wasn't my sister's voice. It was the older officer's. Exactly his voice. "Help! Help!" A pause. Then again. "Please." The officer's face turned white. He was standing 10 meters away from the car. Yet, his own voice was coming through the radio from somewhere inside the forest. Then another voice joined it. The younger officer's. Then mine. The radio began cycling through all 3 of our voices, repeating random words, fragments of conversations we'd had during the drive. It wasn't communicating. It was learning copying us. The older officer shouted for everyone to get back into the vehicle. The second he reached the driver's door, something massive crashed through the trees. Branches snapped, leaves exploded into the air. Whatever it was, it moved impossibly fast. The younger officer swung his flashlight toward the sound. For less than a second, I saw it. Tall, much taller than any human. Its arms hung almost to the ground. Its skin looked pale against the darkness, and its face didn't have one. Only a smooth shadow where a face should have been, except for a mouth that slowly stretched into a smile. Then it spoke. Using my sister's voice, "Koya!" The officers opened fire. 3 rapid gunshots. The creature didn't react. It simply stepped backward and disappeared between the trees. Silence returned instantly. No footsteps, no broken branches, nothing. The older officer grabbed my arm. "We're leaving." No one argued. The engine roared to life. We drove away as fast as the road allowed. None of us looked back, because deep down, we all knew if we saw it again, it would already be too late. None of us spoke during the drive back. The older officer kept both hands locked on the steering wheel. The younger one stared out the window without blinking. As for me, I couldn't stop hearing my sister's voice over and over. Exactly the way she'd sounded when she was alive. No one mentioned what we'd seen. No one wanted to be the first. When we reached the station, we were separated and interviewed individually. Each of us described the same thing: the voices, the figure, the gunshots. The older detective simply closed his notebook. "You'll never mention this to anyone," he said quietly. "No interviews, no social media, no reporters." I asked him why. He hesitated for a few seconds before answering. "Because if people know what it does, they'll answer." That was the end of the conversation. A week later, my sister was buried. The funeral felt unreal. People cried, shared memories, told stories about her childhood. I barely heard any of it. All I could think about was the thing standing outside that window, calling my name with her voice. A few months passed. Life slowly returned to something resembling normal. I sold the old dacha. I never went back. The police officially closed the investigation because of death. Animal attack. No suspect. No explanation. Case closed. Then, 3 weeks ago, I received a phone call. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then, a familiar voice whispered, "Koya." I hung up immediately. The number didn't exist. I changed my phone. A week later, it called again. Different number. Same voice. Sometimes it doesn't speak at all. Sometimes it just breathes. Sometimes I hear knocking. 3 slow knocks. Exactly like that first night. The police officer who drove us through the forest retired 2 months later. No one knows where he moved. The younger officer transferred to another region. He refused to explain why. As for me, I never answer strange voices anymore. If someone calls my name outside after dark, I stay inside, no matter who it sounds like. Because whatever lives in those forests doesn't hunt with claws, it hunts with trust. And if one night you hear someone you love calling your name from outside, don't open the door, even if you're absolutely certain it's them.